I don't even want to look to see how long it's been since I did a Transformers Prime review. It's been a very long time, and I've been wanting to get back to these for a long time. This and Titans both, because I stopped doing these reviews just randomly, these and the Titans ones, like on the verge of some really important stuff, because I get stressed easily, and when my motivation levels aren't quite up to par, let's say I'm ad-libbing this whole section if you can't tell, I worry that the reviews I get out for you guys are going to be worse than usual, and for filler, that's fine. But for important stuff, it genuinely terrifies me. I'm finally feeling a little bit better. I'm wanting to get back into these things, so I'm getting back into these things. I'm going to do Prime this week, obviously, and Titans next week. I'm pretty excited about it too. Though that one may be late in the week and the only video I do, because I'm doing the whole Trigon thing all at once. It's going to be fun but stressful. That said, for those of you who don't remember where we left off in Transformers Prime, it was in the midst of the Autobots and the Decepticons rushing to recover 4 Cybertronian artifacts which have been hidden on Earth since the war, the locations of which were deciphered by the Decepticons, who currently have access to the entire database of an old Cybertronian city, Iacon. It is like the knowledge repository for the entire ancient Cybertronian race. The Autobots do not have access to this database. They were just able to find out that the Decepticons were heading for these 4 locations, and so are racing them there. But getting their hands on the database would be a huge boon for them. Even more so than getting the artifacts, even though every single artifact is, at worst, kind of meh, but at best, like a genuine weapon of mass destruction. And by meh, I mean meh in the context of things that on their upper end are as powerful as weapons of mass destruction. And seeing as how the Autobots don't have as many members as the Decepticons, who have those Viacon guys like out the butt, they have to split up into little teams, and after everybody's sent off, including Optimus himself, it just leaves Ratchet. And Ratchet can't go on his own. He's cool, but he's just one guy, and he's more a tech guy than a fighter. So Optimus pairs him up with Wheeljack, the sort of loose cannon ex-Wrecker best friend to Bulkhead, who isn't really a member of the team, but is really good at what he does, and what he does is beating up Decepticons. And immediately the episode starts out with some really good exposition. It's made moot by the previously on segment at the beginning of the episode, but it's still very effective, and you guys know how much I like effective exposition for some reason. So I appreciate it nonetheless. Immediately, we are reminded through dialogue exchanged between Ratchet and Wheeljack of what the stakes are of this mission, and we're reminded of not just who these two characters are, but of the fact that Ratchet doesn't really appreciate Wheeljack. He thinks he's a dangerous loose cannon and doesn't want to work with him. You get the impression, even though Ratchet doesn't spell it out in so many words, that he thinks that Wheeljack doesn't take the Autobots' role of protecting life seriously. That he doesn't respect Wheeljack at all. That he doesn't respect him or the way he does things. And what's really interesting about that is in most shows that are aimed at kids and feature talking toy commercials, there'd be a moral to the episode. Hey, Wheeljack should be more like the rest of the Autobots. That Ratchet, while his methods may not be correct, is overall correct in this particular dynamic, but that's not what the episode ends up being about. Like, right off the bat, Wheeljack uses the nickname Doc for Ratchet, which Ratchet doesn't appreciate. He'd rather be called by his name, but it's a term of endearment. And you can see that even though Wheeljack is more curt and more jokey and more witty and more harsh in a lot of ways than Ratchet, he's not as well spoken as Ratchet is, he does respect Ratchet, as opposed to Ratchet not having much respect for him at all. Like, when Ratchet insists that he doesn't actually need help, he does. He's wrong. But when he insists that he doesn't actually need help because he proved himself as a warrior during the Great War back on Cybertron, Wheeljack's response is, well, then I'm glad to have you along with me. But there are some clashes here. We do see that when Soundwave, the Decepticon who's going after this particular relic, bumps into them en route and sends his little chest minion drone, Laserbeak, out to distract them, Ratchet wants them to go after Soundwave, but Wheeljack, who's more experienced in this kind of thing, recognizes that if they ignore Laserbeak, he's just going to come up behind him and shoot him down. So he goes after Laserbeak, despite the fact that Ratchet is very insistent that they shouldn't. And it's super interesting because technically they're both right. Soundwave is, by far, aside from maybe Megatron, only maybe though, the most hyper-competent of the Decepticons. If he gets there first, he's gonna find the relic. There's nothing they can do about that. And it's important that these relics get back to the Autobot base, that the Autobots recover them as often as possible. So Ratchet is right. They do need to go after Soundwave as soon as possible. But Wheeljack is just a tiny bit more right. Because Laserbeak is not just some, like I say, chest minion, but he's not some minion character. He's not as powerful as a full-fledged, full-size Transformer, but he's close to it. He's very fast and maneuverable in the air, and his weapons are powerful enough to shoot down Wheeljack's ship. So Wheeljack, trusting in his skills, engages Laserbeak in a dogfight, and they end up shooting each other down. But Ratchet and Wheeljack survive, as does Laserbeak, but it's more important that the heroes survive than the villains, right? And Wheeljack still has time after some more things are settled to go after Soundwave and catch up to him, kind of just as he's finally digging up the relic so he can recover it. It's definitely a closer call than if they had gone after Soundwave immediately and somehow not gotten shot down en route, but things still work out up to that point. Anyway, in fact, this whole episode is super interesting to me. I end up liking it a lot, specifically because these two characters who don't feel like they would gel well together do. Their different perspectives and approaches to things, as well as their varying skill sets, actually make them an extremely competent team. Because when they crash land near Laserbeak, Wheeljack has the idea, since he's going to become a part of Soundwave again once he wakes up from being robot knocked unconscious, however that works, to put a grenade in him so they can blow up Soundwave. Because Soundwave is a very important Decepticon. He says it's an old wrecker trick, and it might have worked. But because Ratchet is there, and because he isn't as impulsive as Wheeljack is, and is more used to looking at the bigger picture of things, working so close with Optimus, he realizes that they can plant something even more deadly in Soundwave. And so he gets in touch with Raph, who, for whatever reason, understands Transformers base code better than Ratchet does, but whatever, I don't mind the kids. I don't mind them finding a reason to insert the kids into the story, right? But he gets in touch with Raph, and they write the base code for a virus that will infiltrate Soundwave and then infiltrate the Decepticon core computer and copy, and then transfer the Iacon database to the Autobots. And Ratchet, again, being someone who works so closely with Optimus, is able to sign off on this with the authority of Optimus himself. He knows Optimus well enough to know that Optimus would go after this over any one of the relics. But that's not where the plan ends. The rest of the drama of this episode doesn't come from them executing this plan at like the last split second. That's part of it. But there's more to it than that. First of all, they have the idea to include a couple of distractions in their plan. First of all, they do implant a grenade in Laserbeak. They just don't set it to go off as soon as it reconnects with Soundwave. It's a decoy meant to leave the Decepticons thinking that that was their ploy, so they don't look for a virus. Because by the time this is all over, Soundwave knows that somebody was futzing with Laserbeak. And they anticipate that's going to happen, so they take this extra measure. And then, while the upload of the virus is happening, Wheeljack goes after Soundwave just to keep him busy for a while so he doesn't come back and find Laserbeak immediately. He hopes he'll be able to get the relic as well, but that's not his purpose. But the fact that the Autobots were also coming for the relic gives him the perfect cover. Like, maybe if these various characters had just bumped into each other out on, like, their own sides patrols or something, going after Soundwave alone would seem stupid. But Soundwave doesn't even know if Ratchet also survived the crash. He would expect that Wheeljack is coming after him to get the relic. He has no reason to believe that Wheeljack is just there to present a distraction. It all comes together super well, and it's all born from the blending of these two characters, very different, very unique perspectives, which, despite being so unique, still gel so well because their eyes are on the same prize, defeating the Decepticons. And they do get the virus uploaded, and it does work. It's a major victory for the Autobots. The rest of the episode is basically made up of that, a little bit of drama from that, and the fight between Soundwave and Wheeljack. And I mentioned that Soundwave is very hyper-competent, like straight up. He fights so weird, and he's so clinical about the way he fights, that other Transformers kind of don't know how to deal with him in combat. I kind of wonder if Megatron would even have an easy time with him, or Optimus even. So obviously he puts Wheeljack through his paces. And yet Wheeljack still manages to win. Like, I mentioned earlier that I think one of Ratchet's problems with Wheeljack is that he doesn't think Wheeljack takes things seriously because he's quippy and witty, and he has fun doing what he does. He likes beating up the bad guys. But you can see when he realizes just how big a threat Soundwave is, he starts to take it more seriously. You can see the moment he does. Like, he still quips a little bit after the fact, but he noticeably scales back the quips and fights Soundwave seriously. And in the end, Soundwave only survives because he's able to get his hand on the relic and use it against Wheeljack. And can I just say, Wheeljack shoots so high up my list of favorite characters simply because when he had his opponent down, dead to rights, he was gonna kill him. Like, I know this is a kid's show and I shouldn't want the characters killing each other, right? But so many times, the Autobots have had one or more of the Decepticons in their sights, but because the conflict was coming to a natural end, because there was another natural end that they could take to the conflict, they don't go through with it. Wheeljack was not going to make that same mistake. He was going to knock off Soundwave, which kind of would have hurt their plan, I guess. But still, I think it might have been a net positive. Overall, Soundwave is very dangerous, right? But unfortunately, Soundwave does use the relic on him. It's a sound gun, which is appropriate for Soundwave. And he does get away with the relic. He was also going to kill Wheeljack after the fact, because what the sound gun does is it fires off like a cone of sonic energy, and any Transformer caught in it is immediately incapacitated. It's very dangerous, but probably not the most dangerous relic to enter play today, so, you know, it's fine. It's fine that the Decepticons got it for now. But he was going to just off Wheeljack as well, because whereas Wheeljack likes beating the bad guys, Soundwave is a pragmatist. But that's the moment that he realizes that something's going on with Laserbeak, and it seems like he really cares about Laserbeak, because after he recovers him, Soundwave even goes back for a piece that broke off of Laserbeak earlier in the entire sequence of events. He even takes the care to do that. So even though it doesn't make sense that he wouldn't just shoot the guy that he's got on the ground in front of him before he flies off, if we assume that Laserbeak is one of the few things that Soundwave genuinely cares about, I guess I'll let it slide. It's a little contrived. I really don't think Wheeljack should have survived this fight. I don't think I would have been able to justify him surviving this fight if I had been writing this episode. But it's fine. It still works out. And at the end of the day, they had to lose the relic, right? Because while it's cool that the two approaches of these two characters gel so well in an actionable setting, it would have become a little convenient by the end if the two of them gelled so well that they were able to recover an artifact and the icon database all at once without consequences. And so at the end of the day, the fact that they lose the artifact actually ends up contributing to the fact that this is an excellent episode. It's definitely a middle episode. It's in the middle of this little mini arc. So it has like an open beginning and an open ending, but it's still very solid all on its own. And it ends with a fantastic cliffhanger for what reveals we're going to get in the next episode, which will show us the struggle over the fourth artifact. It ends with a ground bridge opening and Bulkhead, one of the most physically imposing of the Autobot characters, coming back through with a smoldering blaster hole in his back. And we don't know what happened, and we don't know if he's okay. So, in the midst of this huge victory, where the Autobots have recovered all this vital information that they, at the beginning of the day, had no idea how they were going to get from the Decepticons, if they even could, this happens. It's the perfect setup. I kind of want to go watch the episode right frickin' now, but I have other stuff to do, so I can't, and it sucks. All in all, what an episode to return to Transformers Prime 2. I liked it a lot. The story was tight, the dialogue was snappy, the action was good, and frankly, even though he's a villain, and I kind of wish he'd die because he's a villain, and I do like it when the heroes win, we don't get to see Soundwave in action very often, and he's really freaking cool. He's a really freaking cool bad guy. So seeing him in action ever is a positive. And it's also kind of super interesting if you think about it. Not all of the Decepticons trust Soundwave, because he's this weird, stoic, silent, monolithic figure that just kind of does whatever he wants, because he's like the only person that Megatron really trusts in the entire universe. And in this particular instance, they have real reason not to trust his presence, because he's stopped being a silent enforcer for Megatron and he's become sort of a silent agent for the heroes. Also, the fact that he's like the one character that Megatron trusts more than anybody makes him an interesting parallel to Ratchet now that I think about it, which is kind of cool. All in all, this is a very good episode, and I liked it a lot, if you can tell. As per usual, though, I'd like to know, what do you guys think of this Transformers Prime episode? Did I tell you guys the title? The title's Triage. I don't think I ever mentioned that. What did you guys think of Transformers Prime Triage, if you have seen it? And let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.